Emergency lights flickered, then died, and the car stopped with a soft jolt. A woman pressed the door seam with her fingernails and felt cold steel. Somewhere in the dark, a counterweight ticked and settled. The building groaned, and the cable above them sighed once. The woman found the alarm button by touch and pressed. No bell, no voice, only the smell of hot dust and the rub of shoes on the car floor. At 5:46 a.m. on January 17, 1995, the Great Hanshin Earthquake had rolled through Kobe and the cities along Osaka Bay, and power failed in a sweep that turned offices and towers into quiet boxes with people caught between floors. Outside, expressway columns folded, water mains snapped, and blocks took fire from broken gas lines. Sirens stuttered, then fell silent where trucks ran into collapsed bridges. Phones jammed, elevators stopped wherever the tremor had found them. Doors hung out of square or locked by safety circuits meant to freeze the car so it would not slide. In the first hour, dozens of calls for elevator rescues stacked up at fire stations that could barely roll. People pounded doors and shouted. Some found each other through the metal with calm, steady voices and promised to stay. Most waited. The numbers would be precise later. Investigations counted damage to roughly 5,600 elevators across the Kinki region, with 156 recorded entrapments, and Kobe's own list showed 29 incidents inside city limits. One survey found average rescue time at 42 minutes. The longest on that list took about 2 hours and 10 minutes. Reports found no deaths from elevator entrapment in Kobe that morning. The risk came from what the earthquake had already done outside, the fires, the aftershocks, the broken stairs, and from the long blackout that stretched into days even as rescuers cleared one car after another and moved on. People did not die in dark cars between floors in Kobe. They lived there for a while, and then they walked out into a city that had been stripped of the basics. In those first hours, rescue was blunt work. Maintenance crews from elevator companies pushed through gridlock on foot or bicycles when trucks could not pass. Firefighters hauled pry bars and wedges up stairwells that were cracked and dusty, and then learned that the emergency phones inside the cars connected to dead landlines. Technicians eased hoistway doors with spreaders, locked the car with a metal dog, and brought passengers across a stepladder to a floor that might not be level anymore. Where the car had stopped close to a landing, building custodians helped with tools and rope. Where it had stopped in the middle of a span, crews cranked hand wheels at the machine room to inch the car up or down. Every lift was its own problem: counterweight unseated, guide shoe bent, power out, pit flooded by a burst pipe. And always the voice from the other side of the metal asking how long it would take. The blackout turned routine fixes into slow puzzles. With substation damage and line failures, power could not simply be switched back on. Even buildings that looked intact had machine rooms where motors had walked, contactors had bounced loose, and controller cabinets had toppled. Counterweights that should have stayed inside their frames had hopped and left chips of concrete on the pit floor. Escalators had shifted on their trusses. Crews made a map by memory. This tower needs a door spread, that one a hand crank, a third can wait while a family is freed from a blocked stairwell. Where the phones worked, they worked intermittently. Where they didn't, the people inside banged a pattern and listened for feet in the stairwell. Fire stations logged entrapments and sent whoever was close. In most cases, doors opened within 1 or 2 hours. A few took longer when traffic and debris kept help away. While elevator teams ran their circuit, the larger picture pressed everyone down. More than 6,000 people died in collapsed houses, apartment blocks, and fires that could not be reached. Hundreds of thousands lost water, gas, and power. Rail and road links broke in pieces. Factories went dark across the bay. Some hospitals improvised with generators, while elevators stayed locked and gurneys took the ramps. Low-rise neighborhoods burned and then smoldered into the afternoon. The shaking lasted under half a minute. The damage took years to repair. The earthquake's life safety lesson about elevators landed hard but exact. The cars had stayed where the systems told them to stay, and people came out shaken, thirsty, and angry, but alive. Japan's building community moved quickly on the details. Within 3 years, national guidelines tightened requirements for counterweight retention, machine room anchorage, and control logic for seismic events. Elevator makers added earthquake control to level at the nearest floor and open doors on strong motion, preventing a new round of entrapments in the next big event. Emergency communication systems shifted away from plain analog lines toward more resilient links. Drills began to include manual car movement and safe door opening under supervision. Later, national reviews would find that in this quake, most entrapments were cleared within hours. The longer waits were the exception, caused by jammed roads, aftershocks, and communications failure. In the years after, city planners and engineers used Kobe as a map of what electrical lifelines and vertical transport needed to survive. Power companies hardened substations and improved sectionalizing, so a fault in one zone would not darken a whole ward. High-rise managers learned to stage water and light for stairwells and to keep keys and hand tools where anyone could find them. Elevator service teams rehearsed crossing a city without traffic lights. They worked with fire brigades to agree who led at a stuck car, the tech who knew the controller, or the rescuer who knew how to move people through gaps without widening them. The answer settled into a simple rule: talk, then act. It kept doors from being pried before a brake set. It kept hands clear of sills and few-inch openings where a car could still drift. For the people who spent that morning in the dark, the memory stayed physical. The way air changed in a small space, the locker room smell of rubber and warm steel, the sideways glow of a flashlight blade pushed through a gap. Some remembered how quickly calm returned once a voice on the other side said, "We're here." Others remembered the wave of cheering when the first lights in a district flicked on that night, even though the elevators remained shut down for inspection. A city can keep moving without elevators if it has to. It just moves slower. The quake forced that lesson onto thousands who climbed and waited and climbed again while the crews worked through their lists. The event that people came to call simply Kobe lasted less than a minute. Its aftermath filled months. Elevators belonged to both lines in that story: the seconds where systems froze to protect people, and the days where their silence reminded everyone how much vertical motion a modern city needs. The numbers: 156 entrapments across the region, 29 in Kobe, rescues mostly finished within hours, were not a headline in a disaster that took so many other lives. But they drew a clean line between a fear that many people carried into every elevator ride after and the design work that made that fear less likely to come true when the next siren wailed and the building began to move. Thank you for listening to Road to Ruins. Subscribe for more true stories where systems fail and people pay the price.